Hello, so I'm here with Sarah Phoenix today, and we are going to be helping her plan her next offering so that she can promote it and get some new clients on board. So Sarah, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm Sarah Phoenix. I live in Teignmouth. I've been here down in Devon for about 6 years now. I'm got an adult diagnosis of autism, ADHD, and dyslexia, which has sort of had a big impact on my life and my business. I'm pregnant with my first baby. Yeah, that's me really.
Lovely. And you have an actual building, don't you?
I do, yes. That's been one of my massive achievements is making it into sort of this is my space, which has been amazing. And it kind of makes things really real, sort of going from, working out the spare room to I then rented an office in a space with other offices, and now I've got this place. Which is tucked away behind cat's protection on some little alley. But it's really nice, and it's been a huge milestone in my journey.
Yeah, congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to be helping you kind of refine your offer and the way that so the offer might all be very decided already, but this is more about how you speak about it and how you market it. Mm-hmm. So to start with, can you tell me a bit about your ideal client? Who are they?
I find this really interesting because when we talk about ideal clients, I find that people talk about like who they are, what they do, sort of what demographic they fall into. And I think for me, it's not that. It's like the emotional state that they're in. So my ideal client is someone that is very overwhelmed, feels like there's a million and one things on their to-do list, but there's no time whatsoever to do any of it, and just is completely like brain fried and just doesn't know where to start or how to even begin to tackle, the 600 different things that are all supposed to be happening at the same time. So it's not a demographic, it's an emotion, which is quite different, I think, to normally when people are talking about sort of your ideal client.
Yeah. And so I would say that's the problem that your ideal client is having. But I think that demographic stuff, so the reason the demographic stuff matters is that if so for example, if your ideal client is someone that lives locally because you have an in-person business, then that's an important demographic detail. It means you might be advertising in, I don't know, community centres or in the local paper.
Yeah.
If it's an online thing, it doesn't matter where they live, and you might be just doing it on social media. So some of that demographic stuff really does matter, and knowing, if they're male or female, if they have children, and it's not that you're excluding anyone that's not those things, but just that you can think about what kind of marketing is going to appeal to them, like what kind of language they use, where they might see your stuff. So if you can think about someone that you've worked with in the past that you really enjoyed working with,
mm-hmm.
and that you would like to work with more people like that, what would be some of those demographics?
So it is local because the work I do is face-to-face. I tend to attract small business owners, so self-employed people, sole traders is what I'm trying to say. So people that work on their own, it's just them and their little business. Often women who have also got children. And I think it's that I think it's those people that have got that. So the thing with someone that's running a business and has got children, I don't think it's necessarily that they run a business and got children. I think it's that they're split. And so it might be that they're running a business and they've got children, or it might be that they've got several strands to their business. It does tend to be women. I don't know. It's hard for me because I don't know, because I find networking really difficult, sort of from a neurodivergent point of view. The two networking groups that I go to is Mums in Business Another and Devon Women in Business. And I didn't go because they're for women. They're just the ones that I felt most comfortable at. So I don't know if the reason I attract women is because the spaces that I'm in are with other women. Yeah, but it does tend to be, I would say small business owners. And I think I think in terms of that, it's probably a mixture of people at either end of their business. So either people at the beginning where they've been doing it for, a couple of years, a shortish amount of time, and have sort of been plodding along, but the further into your business to get, the more there is kind of like stuff to keep on top of. And those things that were easier to keep on top of when there was a small client base when I first started were a lot easier than when they've then kind of grown, and then it's like, whoa, now everything's kind of got a bit out of hand. So it's kind of that end. And then it's the other end where it's people that have been going for a long time, have got several strands of their business, but are trying to wind down, but can't wind down because they've been going, at full throttle, doing all of the things for so many years that it's like, well, how do I keep my business ticking over, but also slow my life down? So I think it's probably the two ends of.
If you had to pick one of them, and this, like I say, it doesn't mean you can't work with the other, but just the way that you would speak to those two types of people at an in-person networking event, you obviously would change your language to suit the person. But if you're putting out a post on social media or a piece in the paper, the way that you would speak to and attract someone a couple of years into business and growing and scaling compared to someone who's winding down, which is like the opposite, would be different. So if you had to choose one, what would it be?
I think this is probably where it's really tricky, because I think it's probably at the beginning end. But as anyone that has started a business knows, there is no time and no money at the beginning of a business. And that's what's really hard, I think, because.
But so that's not what you described, right? So someone that's really starting out for 6 months or a year, that's a different thing. They don't know what they don't know. They don't know what they need yet, whether they can afford it or not. But what you were describing before is someone who's like a couple of years in, they've got clients, and their like maybe at the beginning, or their attention was on marketing and getting those clients. Now they've got the clients, like the things they need to do has changed.
Yeah, and you're right, but I still find that the finances are the biggest barrier, even for those people.
But that's true to all of that, and that's why it's showing them that this is a need, not a want, which we're going to come to. But I think that this is someone who, like, they've had some success and now they want more. They're growing and scaling. That's very different to someone who's starting out or trying to wind down. The way you speak to them will be different.
Yeah, no, it is that. I think that's where I would sit most. I think is that kind of, having done, like, you've done the first hurdle of, oh my goodness, what am I doing? Like, you thought running a business was a good idea. And now you're trying to sort of, and now you're trying to sort of put things in place, and it's also that idea of, well, I knew when I started my business, or might not have known, but I sort of accepted when I started my business that it was going to be all encompassing and it was going to take up all of my time because I was setting up. And now I'm kind of settled into it, and it still feels like it's taking up all of my time, but it's now a more established business. Why is it still taking up all of my time? So I think that probably is where I'm looking.
Okay. And the other really key thing is your ideal client neurodivergent, or are they someone who is like, do you know what, I need someone who with whose brain works totally different to mine to complement the way I work?
So that has been a massive, massive sort of learning curve and journey. So when I started sort of piecing together this, and this kind of offer has taken a few years to solidify into what I actually want it to look like. But when I started, it was very much for the neurodivergent community. Looking back, I suspect that was a lot to do with, my diagnosis was December 22, and then there was a whole bunch of family stuff. So 23 was a bit of a write-off. And so I think to start with, I was gearing towards, to be fair, a lot of late or undiagnosed people, mostly women, because they tend to be more later undiagnosed than males. And I think that was less driven from a business perspective and more driven from a personal sort of need to connect. And then I don't know when it was, but somebody that I've met at a business a networking event, who we're now very rarely seen at any networking events without each other, which is sort of go around as a pair. I've got a very, very similar autistic profile to her daughter. And so she kind of gets me sort of as, from the offset, because I'm so similar to her daughter. But she's neurotypical, and we were having a conversation, and she said, it's tricky because I think that I would really benefit, but I'm not sure if it's really for me because I'm not neurodivergent. And that opened a whole other thing. Mm-hmm. So I think now, it's not specific. It's, I think you're right in what you said, is that because of the autism and ADHD, I approach things in a different way, in a way that a neurotypical brain wouldn't approach it. And I think that's the magic, because it seems glaringly obvious to me, but that's how my brain is wired. And I think, yes, I do still get other neurodivergent sort of people that come for support, but I think there's probably more that aren't, but they can't, with the best in the world, can't see it from where I see it, because their brain just isn't wired like that.
Yeah. So yeah, you're going to bring in a different perspective, and I think that's a nice little USP. Okay, so we've hopefully like solidified a bit more who you're speaking to. And you spoke a little bit about the problem that they're dealing with at the moment. So like feeling overwhelmed, feeling pulled in every direction, like split between so many things at once. So how could things get worse for them if they don't make any changes, if they don't take any action, things just stay the same? How, like, things don't stay the same, they will get worse. What could that look like?
I think it's really interesting, because I've got very, I find language and certain words really interesting, because I find that words become buzzwords in society, in different communities, and then you find that words just get thrown out without any real meaning. So the first thing that comes to my mind is you're heading towards burnout. Mm-hmm. Except that there's a bit of my brain that's like, burnout's become a bit of a buzzword. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying that people haven't hit burnout, but it's almost, I find when language becomes almost too popular, it loses its essence. So I don't want to just say we head towards burnout, because that's kind of meaningless, because I think the word gets used a lot. So I think it's the you give and you give and you give and you give and you give, and then you crash, and it's we're heading for that crash. And for some people, that crash is some sort of physical, medical, something where your body goes, that we need to stop. Like, we're not actually going to let you do anything right now because you're now too ill to do anything. For some people, it, might have an impact on life at home, because they're now so stressed and so overwhelmed that actually, you know, the kind of enjoying home life sort of gets lost because you're so stressed about everything. So I think it's if things keep getting worse, something is going to crumble. Whether that is an element of life, or a mental health crisis, or a physical, you know, medical. It's something is just going to crash. Yes, it's that kind of idea.
And so what might that how might that show up? Like, so I'm thinking here about things like, and obviously for the recording I'm doing this a bit more quickly, but they might have to give up their business. It might like ruin their relationships. It might be, you know, they have a lot of guilt around they're not there for, you know, they started a business to go to sports day and they're not even doing a school run. So, you know, like, so just thinking about what are the warning signs that these things are happening? Like they're feeling a bit groggy when they wake up in the morning, maybe. So what are the warning signs that they might be seeing that you could talk about in a post? Now, like, whoa, that happened to me this morning, or I was just talking about this last week.
I think it's that. I think dread is a big one. So I absolutely dread doing my business accounts, or I'm absolutely dreading trying to work out how I, as you say, like move my work around to go to, you know, sports day. I'm absolutely dreading, you know, trying to find a time this week to do the weekly food shop. It's that feeling of like, rather than you're at the point where this is my list of things that need doing, and I'm really overwhelmed, and there's too much on my list. And then you hit the point where you're like, these are no longer things on the list. These are now things I'm actively dreading when I think about them, rather than something I've got to do. It's something you're sort of like, it just fills you with that kind of, I can't deal with it.
I think there's something there, that feeling of dread, and like really tapping into like, what does that feel like? What thoughts are going through someone's mind when they are like, how do they feel in the morning and on their way to work? Like that sense of dread. That's really like, yeah, I think you can definitely do something with
I
that.
find that really interesting because it wasn't until it was a very small bit of my life in where I was employed that I had that kind of what people talk about the Monday morning feeling. But in the great scheme of things, I never really had it. And I find it a really bizarre concept that you have a job and you get to Sunday and you think, oh, I don't want to do tomorrow. And I just think, that's your whole life. That's just mental. Like I just find that whole concept bonkers. And so if things become, I'm dreading doing that, something's got to change.
Yep. Okay. And so how would their life be better if they make a change, if they're not dreading their Monday mornings, if they're not letting their Monday mornings start on Sunday evening with that dread? How could life be better? What could it look like?
I think it's about having more headspace. And when you've got more headspace, you're able to make conscious decisions like what you do with your time. So if you decide, actually, do you know what? I want to work a 12-hour day today. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's been a conscious decision to do that rather than, oh my goodness, I've got so much to do, I can't stop. So it's not about, and this is what's really interesting because people talk about, you know, do things so that you've got more family time, or do things so that you know, you've got more me time, but actually that's someone else telling you what you want to do with your time. It's not about going, okay, well, we're going to, you know, make you calmer and have more headspace so that you can do this. It's so that you can consciously make a decision about what you want to do with your time, and then there's no judgment on what that is. You know, someone else might look and go, oh, that's not how I want to spend my week. But if that's how you want to spend your week, that's absolutely fine. But you're getting to the point where you're making conscious decisions about your time rather than just running on, you know, whatever the next thing that's been thrown at you is.
Yeah, yeah. And how do you get them to the point where they can make those conscious decisions?
So this is almost an impossible question to answer. I have no idea. I have this innate ability to unscramble people's brains, and that's why it's called brain unscrambling. But I couldn't tell you what I do. I can tell you what it looks like. Someone arrives and then they just talk at me, and then I just make magic happen. But I can't access the bit of my brain that knows what it's actually doing. It just sort of happens.
But so what does it look like logistically? Is it they come and spend a full day with you? Is it they come and see you for an hour a week, or like an hour a month? Like what are the logistics? What are you offering?
At the moment, people are coming when they're really at their wits' end, and they'll do 2 or 3 hours. We bash out a whole bunch of stuff. That will always be an offer, because I think people always get to that point. What I think would be far more useful is, rather than doing one huge unscramble once in a blue moon, doing regular smaller unscrambles, so that you're not reaching the point of like you're about to crumble before you seek the help. The idea is that we can stay on top of things so that you don't reach the crumbling point. And so I think weekly, fortnightly, monthly, whatever works for people. And that's where the magic workday comes in, because the brain unscrambling is all one-to-one, and that's that kind of big, let's just get it all out. But the magic workday is small groups, so it's no more than 5. But because it's more regular, you get more time to you're not dealing with everything. And then I'll be back again in however many weeks' time, and so I've this is what I'm doing from now to then. And so over time, the plan is that actually that feeling of, oh my goodness, I'm going to crumble, like I can't, sort of over time, people start realizing that they don't hit that point, rather than hitting that point and then getting the support.
Yeah, prevention is better than cure.
Yes.
So if a brain is unscrambled, what is it? So it's not scrambled anymore. What is it rather than scrambled?
Calm and spacious, I think. It's the idea that there's space in your head for movement. There's space to move things around and to rearrange thoughts and to hold on to thoughts, rather than it being so condensely packed and tangled. So it's calm and spacious, I think.
And why are you so passionate about this? Why should they choose you specifically?
If I'm honest, because I'm really good at it. And it's interesting because it's not a strand of my business that I ever thought would ever exist. It is something that I have been doing my entire life, all through school, A-levels, uni, work. Like just a massive part of my personality. If I see it and I'm like, oh, let's just do the thing. And I've always been like that. And it's not until I've met people sort of through the business world, and they're like, how did you do that? And I'm like, do what? And they're like, well, just sort that out. And I'm like, I don't know. And actually, I think there's a real kind of authenticity to, I have, bar my teaching degree, I have no qualifications. I'm just really good at this. And I think there's something really unique about being able to offer something that is just a innate ability rather than something that you've learned to do. or something that you've developed. Does that make any sense? I don't know if that makes any sense.
I think there's something powerful if you can tap into a story of the first time that someone asked you it and you realized it was, you know, not the way that most people were working, and that like, like it was normal to you and you've been doing it for years, but actually you realize, oh, like I've got something here. I think there might be a really powerful kind of origin story there.
Yeah, it just, I think it must have been, we must have been, my friend that I now do all my networking with, we must have been doing some co-working, just probably sat in a house otherwise. And I think, I can't remember specifically, I mean, she might be able to remember, but she said something, and it was kind of that real, well, how do I fit this in or whatever. And I'm supposed to be getting on my own work. And of course I've heard this, and now my brain's gone, well, right. And then she kind of looked at me and she was like, and it was that kind of, that I haven't really said anything. And I was like, no, but that small sentence, phrase, whatever it was, has now pinged something, and now I'm away. And it's almost like the answers come to me before I've even had a chance to think about it. And then and then sort of more conversations I have with different people, and then I'm like, well, have you just tried this? And then of course the more feedback you get, people go, oh, that's really helpful. You think, oh, actually there's something in this. And I think it's very different when it's people that you don't know as well, because of course, like throughout my life, it's family and friends, because those are the people I'm having those interactions with, and suddenly you're in this business world, and you know these people because you see them every month at networking events. You don't really know them, and not in the same way, and suddenly they're like, that is really helpful, and I'm like, whereas I am known, my close circle as the one to go to when it's all a bit overwhelming, but that's just who I am. And I think it's different when it's people that don't know you as well as a person. That sort of like, that's really helpful.
And so if you're speaking to somebody at a networking event, or you're doing a social media post or whatever it is, what is the one thing that you want them to do following that conversation, that post?
Try it.
So the one action, like, do you want them to come and follow you on social media? Do you want them to book an inquiry call? Do you like, what's the one step that you want them to take?
I think booking a taster magic workday, I think would be the thing, because I think it's an experience you kind of have to feel firsthand. So I think the one thing would be book onto a taster magic workday, and then see what happens.
Okay. And so, bearing in mind the conversation we've had, like just thinking back to the start where we were talking about who is your ideal client, where can you find them?
I have absolutely no idea.
Okay. So this is right. So the importance of knowing who they are will impact where you look. So for example, if you were thinking about the people that are winding their business down, like maybe you would be going to, like, it's older people, and maybe you go to like the Bowls Club or something. If it's people that are just starting up and their mums, like maybe it's in a school newsletter. And so having that, but being more specific about who you're trying to reach, and it doesn't mean that you're excluding the other people, but being more specific about who you're trying to reach will dictate how you do it. And like, do these people, are they on TikTok or Instagram or Facebook or at in-person events? Like, so the more that you can get in touch with who you're actually trying to speak to, what's going through their mind at the moment, the easier it is to go and find them and to do things that will appeal to them.
I think it's interesting with social media in particular. So I hate social media with an absolute passion. I'd quite happily come off all social media and never do it again ever. But it's 2026 and you can't run a business without social media. So I try to keep my social media, like the platforms, as minimal as possible. So I'm on Facebook and I'm on LinkedIn. And that's because I know how Facebook runs, because I've had Facebook since day dot. And I don't even know how I started on LinkedIn, but I did. But for me, social media as a tool is very much I'm in business mode. I'm in like, right, this is part of my work. I think, if I'm honest, well, I don't know. I wonder if my clientele are more on Instagram. The idea of introducing another social media platform into my life just sounds hideous. And so it's that real balance, isn't it, between, you know, do I dive into something new that I know I'm not going to enjoy doing, and stick at it for long enough to see if it helps, or don't I? Really? Yeah, which is really tricky.
And, you know, and it's also bearing in mind that you're looking for local people. So local networking events kind of makes sense, but you also don't like networking. So it's, you know, it's you choosing, and like, you know, what was your phrase? Like making conscious decisions about where you want to get your, because there's enough people at networking or on LinkedIn or on Facebook. It's, you know, like you don't have to bring in new things, but it's you making that conscious decision. Do I want to learn how to do Instagram, or am I going to really go for it on Facebook? Am I going to just do more networking? Like, so making those conscious decisions, but they're easier to make based on, well, if I know who my ideal client is, and I know that they're really likely to be on this platform or at this event.
I think events is probably a good place, because I think I find it easier to talk about, because someone says what to do and I go, I'm the professional brain organizer, and then that is an instant conversation starts, because small talk is not my friend. But as soon as someone says what to do and I say professional brain organizer, and then they're immediately like, well, what is that? What does that mean? So I think that helps. So I think potentially sort of having a look, because there's got to be networking that is like additional to the two that I do, but also isn't massive corporate, because massive corporate is just a whole world that I don't want to enter. So I think is that finding.
But so this is it, knowing what you don't want to do is really important too. Like that's just as useful. Sometimes it's much easier to focus, to like work out what we don't want, and then it's kind of like what's left at the end of that.
Yeah.
Okay, so based on this conversation, what's your main takeaway? What's something that you've kind of got a bit more clarity on?
It's interesting because the concept of an ideal client is always something I've sort of gone, and that doesn't really apply. But you said something, I can't remember the exact words, but something about you're not excluding other people, it's just that's where your main clientele are, which is really interesting, because I think any other time I've thought about ideal client, I'm very much like, what if other people need my help?
If you speak to everyone, you speak to no one. It's too vague and bland. There is too much out there. There's too much noise. You need to be more specific.
And I think when I initially started with this, and I was speaking to other late and undiagnosed women, it was far more specific, but I almost went too specific. So I need to find that balance. But actually, I think that's probably my biggest takeaway is, knowing kind of like where you are on your business journey. I think helps. And it's interesting what you said about it's not actually people right at the beginning, it's people that have done the beginning bit and are at that kind of next bit. Yeah, so I think that's one of my biggest takeaway is sort of not shying away so much from the ideal client, and seeing how to use that moving forward.
Yeah, okay. And I think there's just a reminder that you want, in attracting your ideal clients, you will also repel the people that are wrong to you, and like you need to kind of make peace with that and be okay with losing some of those people, because that's what's going to get, that's what works on social media, isn't it? Like a bit of black and white. And I think it's really important that like we get comfortable with like actively trying to repel people, but also recognizing that some people like they won't fit your ideal client profile yet, so they maybe are right at the beginning, but they're like aspiring to get to the point where they're able to work with you, and they recognize that signing up with you sooner might help them get to that point sooner. And so like being a bit aspirational is quite a nice place to be as well. So almost like your ideal clients who aren't quite ready for you yet, they really want to be, and they want to impress you, and they want to like show you that they're ready to work with you. And by showing that you work with people a bit further along the journey can really help with that.
Thank you.
Okay, so what are you going to do next, or what are you going to do differently going forward?
I think I'm going to relook at sort of posting in local Facebook groups and communities, because I used to do it a lot, and then just didn't. But I think I've got more of an idea of like, you know, do you tick these boxes? I can help. So I think that's probably going to be my sort of first actionable action. And I want to leave it at that, because I have a habit of going, I'm going to do all of the things.
So one nice priority. Fantastic. Thank you very much for joining me today. I'm going to turn off record now.